Hi, and welcome to English-Fabule. Are you learning English? Great. Let's learn English with a very interesting story. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. Let's get started.
Imagine you are at an airport. You want a chocolate bar, maybe a Toblerone. In a regular store outside the airport, it might cost about $6. But inside the airport, the price suddenly jumps to almost $15. This big difference is not a mistake. It shows how things are sold at airports. Many items cost much more at airports. A burger can be almost 50% more expensive. Candies like M&Ms can be 70% higher than prices you find on the street. Even yogurt can be 80% more. These are not just small differences. They are large increases that happen again and again in many airports. Why do people pay these high prices? Travelers are often busy and stressed. They are thinking about their flight, going through security, and finding their gate. They are not calm shoppers looking for the best deal. Sometimes buying something feels like a small reward or a way to feel better during travel stress. This means people might buy things they would not normally buy or at prices they would normally avoid. Once you pass airport security, you enter a special area. You cannot easily leave this area to find another store. You are a captive market. This means you must buy from the shops and restaurants inside the airport if you need something to eat, drink, or read. Leaving means missing your flight, which is very costly. Because travelers cannot go elsewhere, shops in airports have less reason to keep prices low. Airports often have rules about prices. These rules, sometimes called street pricing, try to make sure prices are fair. They say airport shops should charge similar prices to stores outside. But these rules often do not work well. Airports may check prices only a few times a year. Also, it is hard to compare prices if a special item is only sold in the airport. So even with rules, prices stay high. This situation leads to an important question. How did airport shopping become so expensive? How can companies charge so much for simple items like a chocolate bar, even when there are rules against it? This book will look at how this happened and why it continues. 2. Airports in the past and now. In the past, flying was very different. Back in the 1920s and 1930s, airports were special places, more than just points of departure. People went there to see the new technology of airplanes. Many airports had observation decks where visitors watched planes land and take off. It was a celebration of progress. Early airports were designed as destinations. Some featured swimming pools, tennis courts, and dance halls. They offered entertainment and leisure. Restaurants were elegant, attracting local people for important events. Food was high quality, service excellent, and prices similar to good city restaurants, fitting a premium experience. Only wealthy people or important business executives could afford to fly then. A trip across the Atlantic might cost $15,000 today. Because air travel was a luxury, passengers expected top-notch quality and comfort. On planes like the Douglas DC-3, they enjoyed gourmet meals on white linen. Flight attendants offered high service. Airports extended this luxurious travel with selected shops and restaurants focused on quality, not low prices. Everything changed in the late 1970s with a new law, the Airline Deregulation Act, signed by President Jimmy Carter in 1978. Before this law, the government strictly controlled the airline industry, setting routes and ticket prices. This kept airfares high and limited competition. Economist Alfred E. Kahn championed this change, believing that removing government controls would make flying cheaper and more accessible. His ideas proved right. After 1978, airlines gained freedom to set prices and choose routes. The government agency controlling airlines closed down by 1985. Airline fares dropped sharply. Flying became an affordable option for many middle-class families. The number of people flying in the United States nearly doubled in 10 years. This huge shift created a new type of traveler. Airlines adapted by focusing on efficiency and low costs rather than luxury. Gourmet meals were replaced with simple snacks. The airport experience transformed. Simultaneously, airlines started using hub-and-spoke networks in the early 1980s. Many flights went to a central airport, hub, where passengers transferred to another flight. This system meant passengers spent more time waiting at airports. This waiting period became known as dwell time. After clearing security, travelers might have 2 hours or more to wait. They could not easily leave the secure area without risking missing their flight. This long dwell time created a new opportunity for airport shops and restaurants. Suddenly, airports were full of thousands of people daily, with hours of free time and no other options for food, drinks, or entertainment. The airport was no longer a leisure destination. It became a captive market. People had to buy what was available inside, often at higher prices with no alternatives. This fundamental change paved the way for the expensive airport shopping we see today. 3. The Airport Shopping Center. In the early 1900s, Pittsburgh International Airport opened a new terminal. This new airport brought a fresh idea for airport design and business. Instead of just a place for planes and waiting, it was made to be like a large shopping mall. The new Pittsburgh terminal featured more than 100 shops and restaurants. This high number of choices was not by chance. It was a planned strategy to make travelers feel they had many options, giving an impression of real competition, similar to shopping areas outside the airport. A very important part of Pittsburgh's new plan was a rule called street pricing. This rule said that shops and restaurants inside the airport must charge the same prices as they did at similar places outside the airport in Pittsburgh and nearby areas. The main goal of this rule was clear: to get rid of the high prices that were common in airports at that time. It aimed to make prices fair, matching those found in city shops. Airport leaders thought this would make people more willing to spend money. Their idea was that customers would buy more things in total if they felt the prices were fair and not too high. This was different from the usual airport thinking, which tried to make money by charging more for each item. Pittsburgh chose to make more money by having more people buy more items. This different approach worked very well. In just 6 years after opening with the street pricing model, the money earned from airport shops and restaurants in Pittsburgh went up by 75%. This was a remarkable discovery. It showed that the old way of thinking, that you had to charge very high prices to get the most money from travelers, was actually not the best way to earn total revenue. Because prices were lower, more travelers chose to buy things. For example, a person might buy a coffee, then also a muffin, and perhaps a magazine, because the prices seemed fair. So even if each item cost less, more items were sold, and the total money spent by all customers was much higher. This strategy also made customers much happier. A study in 2016 showed that people flying through Pittsburgh spent more money than travelers at other big airports, like those in Boston, Washington, D.C., and Seattle. This higher spending was partly because travelers had good feelings about the airport's fair pricing. They felt respected as customers, not just as a captive market. Seeing Pittsburgh's great success, many other airports across North America started to copy the idea. They began to renovate their terminals, spending millions of dollars to create shopping mall-like areas, just like Pittsburgh. However, most of these other airports did not use Pittsburgh's strict street pricing rule. Instead, they created a new policy called Street Pricing Plus. This rule allowed shops to charge the same as street prices, but also add an extra 10 to 15% on top. Pittsburgh's original rule was a true promise of market rate prices. Street Pricing Plus, however, was a compromise. It let airports keep a pricing premium, giving them more profit, while still appearing to control prices. The difference between these two ways of setting prices would later cause problems, as enforcing street price became difficult and unclear. 4. The big airport companies. When you walk through a big airport today, you see many different shops and restaurants. There might be a well-known coffee shop, a fast food place, and a local-looking sandwich shop. This makes it seem like there are many choices and a lot of competition. However, this feeling of many choices is often not real. It is an illusion. In truth, only a few very large companies own and run most of these shops and food places in airports across the United States. These big companies have grown by buying smaller companies over the last 20 years. This has given them a lot of control over what you see and what you can buy inside an airport. Some of these major airport companies include Avolta, SSP America, OTG Management, Lottie Duty Free, Paradis Lagardère, and Hudson Group. These names might not be familiar to you, but their brands are. For example, in 2023, a Swiss company called Dufry joined with an Italian company called Autogrill. Together, they created Avolta AG. This new, bigger company now owns several large airport operators, including Hudson and HMS Host, plus many duty-free shops. So Avolta itself runs thousands of stores and restaurants around the world, with more than 2,000 locations just in North America. Imagine you are at an airport. You might buy a coffee at one store, then eat at a different restaurant, and later buy a magazine at a newsstand. You might think these are all different businesses, but it is possible that every single one of them is owned by the same big company, like a Volta. They keep the brands separate and manage them in a way that looks like they are competing. But because they have the same owner, they are not really competing against each other for your money. This lack of real competition is a big reason why prices stay high. If different companies truly competed, they might lower prices to attract more customers. But when one large company owns many different shops in the same area, its main goal is to make the most profit from all its locations combined. This often means setting higher prices across all its brands, rather than trying to beat another brand's price. The big company controls the prices for all its places to maximize its total earnings. These large companies also work to hide this ownership. Each brand has its own name, design, and staff, so customers believe they are independent. But the money and big decisions are all made at the top by the main company. This system makes it hard for real price competition to happen. There are a few airports that work differently. For example, Portland International Airport tries to have many small local businesses instead of big chains. They also have rules to keep prices fair. But for most large airports, the control by a few big companies is the common way of doing business. This structure makes it very hard for prices to go down. Why things cost more. When you see high prices at the airport, companies often say it is because their costs are much higher there. They argue that running shops and restaurants inside an airport costs about 30 to 40% more than running a normal shop on a city street. This idea is partly true, but it does not tell the whole story. There are indeed many extra costs for businesses at an airport. First, every single employee who works inside the airport, past the security checks, must pass special security rules. This is a very serious process. It means they need background checks, fingerprinting, and careful reviews by the Transportation Security Administration. These checks must be done again every so often. The company that owns the shop or restaurant has to pay for these checks. They also need to make sure all their staff follow detailed security rules while working. All this makes hiring, training, and managing staff much more expensive for airport businesses compared to regular street shops. Second, bringing items into the airport is also harder and costs more. A delivery truck cannot just drive up to a shop's back door and drop off goods like it would on a regular street. Instead, all goods, from fresh food and drinks to new books and clothes, must go through strict security inspections. Each item is checked, recorded, and carefully moved through the airport's security system. This means the whole supply chain, from the farm or factory to your hand, is more complex and adds to the price of everything sold. Even special tools or materials for building a new shop inside the terminal need security clearance, which drives up construction costs. Third, the rent that airport businesses pay is often higher than outside. Shops usually pay a basic rent amount to the airport authority for their space. But on top of this, they also pay an additional fee that is a percentage of their total sales. This extra fee can be anywhere from 10 to 16% of everything they sell. This system, where they pay both a fixed rent and a part of their sales, makes the cost of having a shop at the airport much higher than for a shop on a regular street. Also, building new stores or renovating old ones inside an airport costs more because of the special rules for safety, fire prevention, and working around airport operations. So it is true that these extra requirements and fees make running an airport business more expensive. Industry experts often cite these real cost increases, saying that operations are indeed 30 to 40% more costly. However, it is important to understand that these higher costs explain only some of the price difference you see. They do not explain why prices are sometimes 60, 70, or even 80% higher than on the street, as some reports have shown. For instance, if a company's costs are 35% higher, we might expect their prices to be around 35% higher to cover those costs and make a fair profit. We would not expect them to be twice as much. The difference between these real, higher operating costs and the much higher price you actually pay is often extra profit for the companies. These businesses can charge such high prices not just because their own costs are higher, but mainly because you, the traveler, are in a special situation. You cannot easily leave the airport to find cheaper options outside. You are what is called a captive market. This means that even with higher costs, companies can still add a significant extra amount to their prices, turning a larger profit simply because customers have very few other choices inside the secure area of an airport. 6. Shopping and waiting. Airports are more than just places for planes to land and take off. They are also large shopping areas. People spend a lot of time waiting at airports, especially after going through security and before their flight. This waiting time is called dwell time. It is a key factor in how much people spend. Studies show that the more time a person spends waiting in an airport, the more likely they are to buy something. This happens for a few reasons related to how people feel. First, flying can be stressful. Even if you don't feel openly anxious, your mind might be working hard. You worry about security checks, finding your gate, or if your plane will be on time. This low level of stress can change how you make decisions. When people are stressed or bored, they often look for ways to feel better or pass the time. Shopping can become a way to relax or to give yourself a reward. This feeling is often called a treat yourself mindset. You might think, I am traveling, so I deserve a nice coffee. Or, I have waited so long, I should buy this. Another reason is the uncertainty of waiting. You might not know exactly when your plane will board, or if there will be delays. This feeling of being in a holding pattern can be uncomfortable. People often want to buy things that give them immediate happiness or distraction. A new book, A tasty snack or a small gift can help to fill this waiting time and make it feel more pleasant. The way airports are built also helps encourage spending. Airport hallways are often designed to guide passengers through many shops and restaurants. This is not by chance. It is a plan called retail theater. Designers want to make sure you walk past many things to buy. They create an attractive shopping environment, like a big mall. The goal is to show you as many products as possible, hoping you will make an impulse purchase. You might see a shiny new product or a tempting food smell and decide to buy it even if you did not plan to. Since travelers cannot easily leave the secure area of an airport, they are in what is called a captive market. This means their choices are limited. If you are hungry or need a gift, you must buy it from the stores inside the airport. You cannot simply go to a cheaper store outside. This situation can make people more willing to pay higher prices. The thinking might be, I'm already here and I can't leave, so I might as well buy what I need or want. Airports have many kinds of shops, from quick food places to luxury brands. Duty-free shops, with their displays of perfumes, jewelry, and electronics, are designed to make you feel like you are buying something special and high-end. For some business travelers, the airport feels like a break from work. They might relax their normal rules about spending money, thinking of the airport as a temporary escape. All these things, the waiting, the stress, the smart design, and the limited choices, combine to make airport shopping a unique experience, where people often spend more than they planned. 7. Good rules and bad rules. Even with rules meant to keep prices fair, airport shopping can still be very expensive. Often, these pricing rules do not work as intended. One main problem is deciding what a street price truly means. It is not always clear which outside store should be used for comparison. For example, if an airport shop sells a special type of sandwich for $18, it is hard to say if its price should be compared to a cheap sandwich shop or a more expensive deli in the city. Also, shops often create new food or products only sold at the airport. When this happens, they can argue that there is no street price to compare these items to. This lets them set higher prices without breaking any rules. Audits have shown that many items in airport shops are priced much higher or cannot be compared to anything outside. Airports also do not check prices enough to make sure shops are following the rules. Most airports only look at prices once or twice a year. This allows shops to charge more for many months without being caught. The people who check these prices usually work for the airport itself. This can be a problem because airports get more money when their shops make higher sales. So there is less reason for them to strictly enforce lower prices. When shops are found breaking the rules, they rarely face big fines or public shaming. They are usually just told to fix their prices, and then they might go back to high prices after a few weeks or months. One audit even found that 20 out of 25 stores did not follow the pricing rules, with products costing 59% more. There are two main types of rules for prices: street pricing and street pricing plus. With street pricing, shops must charge the same amount or less as stores outside the airport. Street pricing plus allows shops to charge a little more, typically 10 to 15% above regular street prices. However, shops often simply charge this extra percentage, meaning prices are still higher than outside. This small increase, when allowed, often becomes the highest price that shops will charge, rather than making them compete to offer lower prices. Portland International Airport, or PDX, shows that strict rules can work very well. PDX has firm street pricing rules and makes sure shops follow them carefully. They also choose to work with many small local businesses, not just a few big companies that own many different brands. The airport helps these local shops by sometimes covering part of the building costs and allowing them to pay rent based on a percentage of their sales. This focus on local shops and fair prices has made PDX very popular. Travelers there spend about $15 per person, which is around 20% more than at many other airports. People are happy with the fair prices, so they feel good about buying more, which helps the local businesses grow and brings more total money to the airport. Local businesses at PDX often report much higher sales than their stores outside the airport. On the other hand, some airports have removed their pricing rules, and this has led to higher costs for travelers. In 2019, Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport stopped its street pricing policy. Before this, prices for food could only be 10% higher than outside the airport. After the rule was removed, prices for things like burgers quickly went up a lot. The airport had hoped that shops would compete and keep prices fair, but this did not happen. Instead, prices generally became much higher because there were no longer any limits. Los Angeles International Airport, known as LX, made a similar change in 2025. They removed an 18% cap that had limited how much shops could charge for most food and drinks. Now, only essential items like water, baby products, feminine products, and medicines have price limits. This decision was made even though some airport officials had warned against it, and studies showed that travelers were already spending less money because of high prices. These examples from Phoenix and Los Angeles clearly show that when rules are removed, prices usually rise for passengers without creating real competition. 8. The future of airport shopping. Airport shopping is at a turning point. For many years, travelers largely accepted high prices. However, recent studies now show people are spending less at airports because prices for food, drinks, and other items are too high. This change could reshape how airports do business. A key study from J.D. Power in 2024 clearly showed this. Travelers spent less on food, drinks, and retail items. On average, spending dropped by $3.53 per person compared to the year before. At large airports, the decline was even bigger, at $6.31. This was the first recorded drop in airport spending, showing passengers are actively changing their buying habits due to costs. This shift happens because customers increasingly feel airport prices are unfair. They are no longer willing to pay any price. Many now bring their own snacks and meals from home. Others buy cheaper items or simply decide not to buy anything at all, even if it means waiting without a treat. Airports face a clear choice. They can continue with high prices, like in Phoenix and Los Angeles, where pricing rules were removed. This often leads to even higher prices because shops know customers are captive. Or they can follow Portland International Airport's successful model. Portland Airport maintains strict fair price rules. Shops sell items at prices similar to those outside the airport. This helps local businesses and makes customers happy. Fair prices encourage more overall purchases, leading to higher total revenue for the airport and better customer satisfaction scores. However, many airports will likely continue high pricing. A few big companies operate most airport shops. These companies have long contracts and want maximum profit. Airports also get a percentage of high sales, creating an incentive to allow elevated prices. This established system is very difficult to change quickly. But customers are more informed today. Smartphones make it easy to compare airport prices with those outside. This growing awareness makes it harder for shops to justify high markups. As this knowledge spreads, customers will likely continue to reduce their spending. The famous $15 chocolate bar will probably still be available, a common sight. But the real question for the future is, will travelers keep buying it, or will they choose to pass by, potentially forcing airports to finally change their pricing system? What do you personally think travelers will choose to do in the coming years?
Hey there! Just a second before you go. If you learned something new today, please give this video a like, write your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the channel. It only takes a second, and it really, really helps to create even better English videos for you. Your support means the world,